Well, hello, and today your So What Seamstress is going to dabble into some quilting tips and kind of show you the easiest patterns that I know of to start off with. Um, if you don't have an AccuQuilt system to cut your strips, then of course you have to do it by hand and use your handy little ruler. Clear, this is 2.5 inches, which is exactly the width of the strips that I have, and of course your rotary cutter. So you would put this on your fabric, cut your strips, and then you're ready to go. Now you're typically going to be using a 44-inch wide fabric, and then you can cut that into, after you do your 2.5-inch strips, which will be like this, 2.5 inches, and this is 22 inches. This is 1/2 of the width of the bolt. And after you cut those out, that's when you start piecing them together. Now, one of the things that a lot of people have problems with is color coordination. Well, if you're going to do a blue quilt, just do different shades of blue, and then if you want to put a splash of another color in there, you can. So I have a light, I call this a medium, even though it's a print, and this will be the dark shade. So once you figure out your color scheme, you can get started. So the first thing you want to do is figure out what colors or color scheme you're going for. Like if you're using blues, and for what I'm going to show you is the 9 patch, and I don't know what the other design is called, but I call it the Lincoln Logs, just because it's just, they look like little logs. So when you figure out your color scheme, you want to do a light shade, a medium shade, and a dark shade. You can make them all solids, or you can make it a mixture of solids and print, or just all prints. I have one solid color in this mixture that I have here, and it was just to use the last strip of something up. So, and in all that, this is where I start. So this combination of colors is blues. And one of the colors that I have, the real light one, is mostly white and has a little bit of blue in it. So that would be my light version. You can obviously tell what the dark is. It's the darkest one on here. And then this one, I call it a medium because it's kind of a cream with the blue. And it's a dark navy blue. So I've got my light, my medium, and my dark. You can put them together in this fashion, or you can swap them around. So I'm going to show you what the strips I have here. So this was kind of like the leftover strips I have, this blue polka dot. And then I have this, I call it a medium kind of blue floral. This is all poly cotton, by the way. So it's kind of a medium blue. And then this white one with little blue flowers was the last one. This one is in my pile, but what I did was I took each one of the pieces of fabric and I made the 2.5-inch strips. That would be 44 inches long, but then I cut those in half, so I have 22-inch strips. It's easier to work with that way. So this kind of fixing them together, or sewing them together, is what I use for, I call it the log cabin look. So it ends up being 3 strips. This would be my medium. Actually, that's the light, medium, and dark. Just as long as it's a variation of the same shade, it works really well. And I laid the strips out on the table here to mimic this. So as I work them, I'm going to take the first top 3 strips, of, let me see if I can move this back so you can see a little bit there, can see it a little bit better. I'll move these into view. Now you can arrange them however it makes it easier for you. I do it this way, and I pull 3 strips up, sew them in order together. And what I do to save time is I use my serger. So when you're sewing your strips together using a serger, it trims it, it overcast stitch it, and from the needle to where the blade is exactly a 1/4 inch. That makes your 1/4 inch seam. So you don't have to measure it because you already know that the serger is going to give you a 1/4 inch seam, and that's what you want. The finished product is going to be 6 by 6 because you have a 1/4 inch on each strip, 2.5. You're taking away these 2 1/4 inches here, so now this is exactly 2 inches. These are still 2.25 inches, but when you stitch the next block to it, now it's 2, 4, 6, 2 inches a piece, and that's how you put it together. So once you sew your 3 strips together, and like I did the same thing here, I used the serger, and then you want to press the seams to the inside, always to the inside. And now you've got a piece that is 6.5 by 6.5. And so once you take the second piece and sew it to this one, it becomes 6 on each side, 6 by 6. Okay, so this one would be, you can match them up. I like to do them where it gives you some kind of a pattern with the log cabin look. So this is basically, once it's sewn together, taking up that 1/4 inch seam, you sew those 2 together and you get something like this. Okay, and then I could take another one of these and put it over here, or I can put a different block. So I have different ones. And you kind of want to make, when you're doing the log cabin, you have vertical, then you have a horizontal. So this one would be a horizontal here, here. So then it gives you that block look. See if I can do that with these on here to kind of show you. There's that one. And that's the 2.5 inch strip. And this way. Of course, you would need 9 of these to make one big block. And if I do like that, this one would be vertical. This one would be, this is just kind of give you an idea, horizontal. And so now you've got this kind of pattern going on, where you have vertical, horizontal, a vertical below that horizontal. So then you can see it starts making like a roundabout kind of pattern. So these are the strips sewn together, just like this. Again, with the serge seams. And now if you want to do a 9 patch, a 9 patch means 9 little blocks sewn together. So you would need 3 different designs or 3 different combinations, and you're going to stack them. And the way you do that to make your 1 6 by 6 block is, now each one of these is 2.5 inches and 2.5 inches wide. So you see how those are the same? Well, you would want to put them a little different. You could put them together this way. So you have 3 and 3, that's 9, and stitch those together, and then that would be your 9 patch. What I'll do is I'll go ahead and stitch these together and show you how that looks. Now after you lay out your 3 3x3s, and I did them in the order where the dark center was in the center, and the same color blue was in opposite corners, and when you stitch them together it looks like this. This is just, now this is a 6.5 by 6.5 square, because you have a 1/4 inch at the top and you still have a 1/4 inch at the bottom, and that is your seaming for adding another block to this, so that you can do a whole quilt just of the 9 patch and just change up the colors. You can make blue squares and then maybe have do a rainbow thing. And again, I used the serger to stitch them together nice and neat. Also gives a little more body to it, and then when you do your backing and your batting between, and then you do your quilting, well, then it just makes it even stronger. Now the log cabin one, and I'm going to kind of go ahead and do this one for you. This is another, so this would be 1 9 patch, 2, let's see, 3, 4. This would make 4. And start out small. Start out with a 1/2 yard of fabric. That way it's 18 by 44. And you can do the 9 patch one. I think the 9 patch looks cute, especially if you want to do like a baby quilt and do all blues, and then do a pink one or yellow or green, whatever you want to do. And log cabin more is a more grown up kind of look. So in order to do these, okay, after you've sewn your 2.5 inch long strips together and you want to do the log cabin look, you need to cut this, what's left on here, and I usually cut more than one at a time because I have 3 different variations, as you can see. And so I lay them out on top of each other so I kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like when I put it together. And this would be one variation where it would have this design here, here, and then of course in the middle, but I don't really want that in the middle. So I would probably take this one and put it like that. And so then that would make it different. So that would be 3 6. That would make, that would be for a 9 patch, I'm sorry. But this is how you come up with your variations. Take the fabric that you have and kind of lay it out and see what works as far as, what your eye appeal is. So this is, that was a leftover piece. These are actually once you cut the first ones, the first sewn strips together, and you have your 6.5 by 6.5, you can use this as your pattern so that you're not have to constantly measure. And you just take each one of your 3 strips and lay it out on there, and then just cut it to the same size. But you want to make sure that you lay it on there just like it is, a vertical. Lay that down. I use this as a guide, and I smooth it out. And I'm going to cut it to the same size because these are going to get matched up together. And use your rotary cutter along there. And just like this. I think I need a new blade. So then what I'm going to do is see, I'm piecing together the design as I go. So let's see what we got here. I want to do, this one is horizontal. This one's going to be vertical. And this one's going to be horizontal here. So then I need is 1, 2, 3, 4 more. And when this gets done, you end up with 6, 12, an 18 by 18 motif, because this is 6, 6, 6, which is 18, and you got 3 across, and it becomes 18 inches. So let's put that one together so you can kind of see what it's going to look like. Okay, so I've laid out my pattern of my three strips by 3 strips, and so you have 3, 3, and 3. That's 9. And I'm doing one stripe at a time. So I'm pinning this first one together, and then the middle one together, so that I don't forget the pattern on these. So you want to pin those like this. Pin that top one to there. This one is going to be on the bottom, so it gets pinned here. Now, of course, when I get to the serger, the pins come out, but this is just so that I don't mix up the design that I've come up with. And then there's the center one. And this is the one on the other side. Pin that one. Top to the middle of that one. This is the bottom. Now sometimes if I want it to be a pattern that I want to be able to duplicate, well, I'll take a piece of graph paper and I will mark it off light, medium, dark, and just use it in that way. So now I've got my 3 strips pinned, and so I'm going to sew the tops and bottoms to the middle piece, and then I'll take each one of those strips and sew them to each other, but I'll show you what one of them looks like once it's done being sewn. So I took the 3 strips and I sewed them together in the pattern that I wanted, and it comes out like this. So you can see it's kind of like a little all over there. A lot of people like to do where they arrange it so that the blue continues on through, and this one has a T here and a T there upside down. So this was mostly just about the colors and putting it together. They have a little bit of a zigzag pattern with this one. That's because I didn't grid it out. That's why taking a piece of graph paper and gridding it out so that you stay consistent with putting your strips together like here, then you get the design you want. But this is just one way that I do some quilting. I'm going to show you some shortcuts in another video, and using fusible interfacing. So I hope you get into doing some quilts, even if it's just a small baby quilt or lap quilt, because it's a lot of fun.